Hi there, thanks for watching this video. We'll be looking at how we can do widget communication using something called the void callback and the function of type. So right now we have a very simple counter. We can't even increment it, but we are going to be able to increment it very soon. If we look at the counter page, it's a stateful widget because we are going to be using this count as the state. We have a centered count, and if we click into count, count is a stateless widget. And currently it just displays the value of the count that has been passed in. So a very simple application. We are going to add something called the void callback. And the void callback is going to allow us to, instead of just displaying a count, we are now going to display a flat button. And that flat button will have an onPressed event. So when we click this button, we want to notify the parent component. We don't want to pass anything. We simply just want to notify that this count button has been pressed. So let's, at the top here, add a final void callback of OnCount Selected. We're going to update the constructor to now take this .count and this .onCount Selected. Perhaps the count should be required, so we'll add required. And the OnCount Selected, this doesn't need to be required because maybe we always don't want to listen for that button, maybe only sometimes. So when we do hit that button, we want to fire the OnCount Selected method. What exactly has this given us the ability to do? Well, if we go back to our counter page, we can now see that we need to pass the count in as a named parameter, just like that. But we also have access to this OnCount Selected. So now we can print out selected the counter. If we open up the debug console, we can see selected the counter anytime we hit that count button. So this now gives us the ability to communicate from this widget that we want to do something inside of this counter page whenever that has been selected. So whilst that is great for identifying the callback events with no expected value, hence the void, what about if we want to return a value back to the parent? Well, this is where we use the f of x method. So we can go to count, and as well as the count selected, we can add a final function of type integer called OnCount Change. Now, as you can imagine, this OnCount Change is fired anytime that the count changes. So let's add this to the required, and we'll say this.onCount Change, just like that. This gives us the ability now inside of the counter page to say OnCount Change. We know that that's going to be an integer. And then of course we can do something with that value. Right now we aren't doing anything, so let's go back to the count.dart. And we can change up count.dart to instead return a row instead of a flat button. So we'll wrap that with a row. And we'll have an icon button. We'll give this the icon of icons.add. And the onPressed of OnCount Change 1. We'll copy that, place it underneath the flat button. This time it will set the icon to remove, and we'll change the count by -1. We can also take this row and set the main axis alignment to center. Now what we're doing is anytime we select these plus and minus buttons, we're calling this function right here with the integer value of either 1 or -1. And because inside of our counter page we are listening to this event, we can then use setState to set the state equal to the count plus equal the value. This should now change the value of our count based on whatever we passed inside the callback of the count widget. So when we use the plus, we can expect that the value goes up by 1, and when we hit the minus, we can expect that it goes down by 1. So while there are multiple ways to manage states and manage different widget communication methods inside of Flutter, this is perhaps the most elementary. We're using something called the void callback, and we are using the function of type. It allows you to create more flexible, dynamic widgets inside of Flutter. So I hope you found this useful. If you have, hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell and all that jazz. Until next time, I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye.